Hello, Brobs. We're back with The Making of a Vampire. Chapter 2, Creating Life, Paracelsus. In 1493, the year when Christopher Columbus returned to Spain with the fantastic but true story of a strange world which he believed to be part of Asia, a young woman of Maria Eisenstein, a town in Switzerland, gave birth to a baby, Philippus Areolus Theophrastus Bombast von Hohenheim, figure 20. Oh no, not the figure 20. There's figure 16. Be honest with you, these figures are... There's 26. Yeah, I know I should have pre-mapped them, but that's not how it works here. Let's see where 20 is. Ho. Figure 20. Cast of arms. That can't be right. Did it say figure 20? It's weird. Just shows the coat of arms of the Barons von Hohenheim, Paracelsus family, who were very early in his life, at about 20, became known as Paracelsus the alchemist. In 1520 or 1521, when he arrived in Transylvania, Paracelsus was a young magister of about 27, handsome, strong-minded, and wise. He had already completed several experiments of importance in alchemy and was convinced that technology, magic, and nature were closely related with each other. His research on the philosopher's stone, the substance, which was widely believed to have the power to turn base metals into gold, had made him famous in Germany and Italy. He had found an early formula for what we call today telephone. It was a combination of pipes and crystals, which, according to him, was able to carry the human voice over a distance of 100 miles. In Transylvania, his indefatigable spirit was in search of what the scholars of that time called the elixir of life, a chemical preparation regarded as the source of life, or having the power of indefinitely prolonging life. He was said to possess a formula for producing an artificial being, the so-called homunculus, from sperm and blood. It was a chemical process comparable to what we call today parthenogenesis, the production of an embryo from an egg by temperature shocks, and chemical stimulation, that is, without natural fertilization. Paracelsus's own idea was to produce an embryo not from egg, but directly from sperm cells. At about the same time, Dr. Faustus, another fabulous alchemist and magician, was engaged in similar experiments. The legend says that Dr. Faustus became young again when he was in his 70s. However, unlike Paracelsus, who worshipped Jesus Christ and used magic as a technique only, Faustus concluded a pact with the devil in which he gave up his soul in exchange of a new youth. Paracelsus' research was not of diabolic nature, but purely scientific and experimental. Here is an account of his search for a homunculus. If the sperm enclosed in a hermetically sealed glass is buried in horse manure for about 45 days and properly magnetized, it begins to live and move. After such a time, it bears the form and resemblance of a human being, but is transparent and without corpus. In his experiments, he used horse manure because at the time, manure was the only chemical source of constant heat. Arrived at this point, Paracelsus conceived the idea that only enriched blood or a higher quality of blood could give shape in real life to his little monster. If the moving matter is now fed artificially with the arcanum sanguinis hominis until it is about 40 weeks old, and if allowed to remain during that time in horse manure, in a continually even temperature, it will grow into a human format. In his views, arcanum sanguinis hominis was human blood, treated with chemicals in order to become radiant with energy and producible of life intensity. To obtain the arcanum, Paracelsus' first studies were on a type of blood which had lost part of its natural properties. He became thus interested in a rare sanguineous disorder called erythropoietic protoporphyria, a blood disease characterized by the production of too much porphyrin, a red substance in blood. The doctors of the Middle Ages noticed that certain Eastern Europe noblemen who married with young ladies of another race produced strange hybrids who had reddish eyes and were sallow and anemic. Their skin was sensible to light and cold. As a consequence, they preferred to live in semi-obscurity. Sometimes these hybrids had pronounced cracks in the skin that bled when exposed to light. The disease appeared to be present at that time in Eastern Europe, also called the Gate. No, not that again. Not that figure 11 again. The Gate of Orient, where several races came in touch with each other. I was in Transylvania when I first read Paracelsus's famed memoir on his homunculus, and I couldn't but notice the likeness between those who suffered from erythropoietic protoporphyria as described in the memoir and the image of the vampire as depicted in legends and hearsays. I couldn't help comparing Paracelsus's arcanum with the recently discovered DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, better known as the building blocks of life, which is the active substance of the genes and chromosomes in all living things. In modern experiments, the DNA synthesizes essential life-sustaining proteins and is used by many modern scientists in new medical procedures designated to keep people young. I was amazed to see that the modern cloning controversy had been preceded, at least in some theoretical aspects, by various experiments in the alchemists of the Middle Ages. Paracelsus' investigations in this broad field began when he remarked that salamanders, those imperfect creatures, had an outstanding advantage over man. They can lose a leg or the tail, and then the lost organ grows back in the same shape and has the same properties. Moreover, Paracelsus noticed that the temperature at the site of injury in salamanders was higher than in the rest of the body. This tension at the place of injury long time retained Paracelsus's attention and probably astonishment. Today, this difference is called positive and negative polarity. What if I used this tension, Paracelsus wrote in his memoir, to induce cells to return to their developmental stage and regrow other cells which have been lost because of degeneration or aging? In contrast with modern electrotherapists who accelerate healing in bone injuries that in the past would have required amputation, Paracelsus, who didn't know what electricity was, had the feeling that people grow old and die merely because they don't know how to prevent the aging process and activate the body main line of defense against infections. These words in Paracelsus's memoir remind me now, when I write these lines, an announcement made in 1979 by a Swiss doctor about the gene transfer of an interferon-producing strain of bacteria. In truth, the interferon is today what Paracelsus called 400 years ago the body main line of defense against infection. His arcanum, elixir in English, like the interferon today, was intended to rid people of several of their most persisting and debilitating maladies, such as heart diseases, stroke, diabetes. It is logic that those who are not ill live longer. Also, avoiding illness means prolonging life. Paracelsus was absolutely right on this stance. He was wrong, of course, when he believed that from here to restoring life was only a step. Of all Eastern European countries, Paracelsus chose Transylvania for his investigations. Because of the various races living there, he was sure they interbred. 4 races were indeed living in Transylvania. First, there were the native Romanians, a people of Roman origin then. There were the Hungarians and Seclers, or of Turanian origin, who came there from Asia in the 9th century. There were the Saxons of German origin who came there in the 12th century, and the Jews, believed to be Semites, but were in fact the survivors of the neighboring Judaic kingdom of the Khazars, destroyed to pieces by Russians in the 13th century. When I crossed Transylvania in the pursuit of my research, I realized that all these people lived there in an amazingly cordial animosity, of which the following joke is an example. I heard this joke in, oh no, the joke's on me, in all 4 or 5 communities, and here it is. Here is its Romanian version. You know how dumb Hungarians are, the joke began. At a ceremony celebrating the friendly relations among our ethnic communities, the Hungarian mayor of a village had been awarded a prize by Romanians, a precious wooden stick, 6 feet long, having a rich and beautifully hand-carved head with floral motifs. A member of the House representing the Hungarian community living in Romania gave a much applauded speech on that occasion. Next month, the mayor and the Hungarian representative were both invited to another ceremony for all the nationalities in the district capital. The House representative advised the mayor to bring the stick with him to show Romanians what politesse meant. The mayor brought indeed the stick with him, but the beautiful head was missing. What happened? The representative asked. It was too long, sir, and I cut it. I see, but why did you cut the head? It was too long in its upper end, sir. Ha ha ha. In the Hungarian version, the dumb mayor was Romanian. In the Jewish version, he was German, and of course Nazi and so on. To return to the 16th century Transylvania, this animosity was the same then as today, that is, cordial. So interbreeding was possible. It is no doubt that Paracelsus found there at least one mongrel. The increased amount of porphyrin in the blood of such hybrids made the alchemists believe in possible changes in the blood quality. If a poor quality of blood could result from interbreeding, he thought, the contrary was possible too, to obtain a better quality of blood. Yet he didn't know how, but had a strong belief in certain hidden powers he could count on. Man is the sum total of the elements of the universe, he wrote in his memories. Because of man's divine imagination, man can, by faith in the power of God, bring into action godlike powers here on earth. Paracelsus' first stop in Transylvania was in Satu Mare, a town called Satmar by Hungarians. When the diligence arrived at the post relay and the travelers got out, Paracelsus found himself in the middle of a large plaza. People of all sorts, some peasants, some townsmen, some dressed in picturesque local attires, were coming and going by, except one wearing a black kaftan and a black fur hat who was waiting near the area where the travelers went out. The man was obviously looking for those in need of accommodation, and Paracelsus motioned to him. The man took the magister to his home, where he and the wife treated the traveler with much care and respect. The house was well furnished but exempt from Christian symbols, which were common in those parts, such as crosses, icons, and votive lights. At a casual remark made by Paracelsus, the host said, somehow embarrassed, "You should know, sir, we are Jewish. Here is Satsmar." They offered their guest a good dinner with borscht, gefilte fish, and a big cake. Then the man led Paracelsus to a comfortable back room, where a large bed with many down pillows and a large down quilt were waiting for the tired traveler. The alchemist fell asleep almost immediately. Next day he wake up very early, took his breakfast, and before leaving asked for the cost of the board and lodging. 3 kreuzers, sir. Instead of paying, Paracelsus asked to see a kreutzer, and the host put a coin on the table. Paracelsus then pulled a mother of pearl box from his backside pocket, opened it, and smeared the coin with the translucent, strongly scented wax of that box. Then he put the coin on a flame and waited until it became red hot, almost incandescent, and quickly dropped it into water to cool. After a short while, he pulled it out carefully and rubbed it dry between his fingers. When he returned the coin to its owner, it was a pure gold, shining piece of money. The man was simply astounded and bit the coin to test its solidity. At that time, this was the only method to test the gold. People knew that gold was softer than base metals. The kreutzer was soft indeed, and the man looked in astonishment at the marks left by his teeth in the metal. It was real gold. Paracelsus' next step was in Cluj, Klausenberg in Germany. All the way to Cluj, while he sat in the diligence. What is the diligence? He scratched himself to death to relieve an itching he hadn't before. When he arrived in Cluj and undressed in his inn room, he understood the reason of the itching. He found his clothes infested with lice. He immediately set to work upon that problem, used his translucent and scented wax again, and next morning the lice were gone. He took an enjoyable bath before breakfast, and then the innkeeper, who was a Romanian, brought him the meal. Mamaliga with fried eggs, cream, and cheese. As a drink, he received a large cup of fresh milk. Mamaliga was a sort of porridge of maize flour, and its taste, in combination with the eggs, cream, and cheese, seemed so good that Paracelsus ordered the meal once again. He ate his fill and then left the inn. He crossed the town, figure 22. Not again. Where the hell is this damn figure? There's the crest. It must be this damn thing. Nope, this is it. No, that's 21. I don't even remember seeing figure 21 come up. But now we're on figure 22. All right. Hold on a minute. We'll get there. It must have been that hooded figure. Oh, what's this? You really sent me over here for this. Medieval Transylvania. On a street like this, Paracelsus walked. On his way to the pharmacist, such streets are still in existence in today Transylvania. For instance, in Sibiu and Bragov, drawing by blah, blah, blah. Where was our spot at? I don't think I'm checking the next figure when they tell me. And arriving on a street larger than the others and bordered by tall poplars, entered a pharmacy. He had a half-hour conversation with the pharmacist, a gray-haired, mustached Hungarian, during which the words porphyrin, hemoglobin, and yellow spiders were uttered several times, and several pieces of gold passed over the counter and were dropped in the pharmacist's backside pocket. Then the pharmacist led Paracelsus across the inner court at the house and opened the door of the laboratory. I hate pressing this book down flat because then it ruins the spine, but damn, this book is moving all over the place. The magister arranged the seat for himself at a table not far from a chemist's oven, chose several earthen pots with chemicals from among those ranged alphabetically on the shelves, and put them all together with 24 of test tubes and a spirit lamp on and round the table. He then pulled out of his backside pocket his mother-of-pearl box, which contained his famous translucent wax, opened it, and placed it on the table next to the spirit lamp. The laboratory became instantly filled with the piercing fragrance of the wax. Meanwhile, the pharmacist fetched 2 large glass jars, one with the label that read crossbred blood, coagulated, and the other with yellow hairy spiders. He then bowed to the magister and left the room. Paracelsus remained there, among jars, tubes, and spiders, absorbed in a painful chemical and physiological experiment using his own blood until late in the night. It was very late indeed when the pharmacist entered the laboratory and invited the alchemist to supper. The wife, a glamorous young Hungarian, gave the newcomer a big dish of paprikash, which was the Hungarian national meal. Pork and beef meatballs with potato balls and tomato sauce with plenty of red pepper. Paprikash. The magister ate with great pleasure without knowing that the savory, piquant taste of the paprikash was due to some animal blood which was added to the sauce. Then all three cheered over 3 comprehensive cups of palinka, the Hungarian brandy made of pears. The palinka freed the tongues, and the pharmacist dared to ask, Magister, have you been successful in your experiment with blood? Yes, dear, Paracelsus answered. I did separate the porphyrin, but your spiders have been of no use. Perhaps my blood, which is German and healthy, cannot be affected by their venom. I think I should repeat the experiment with the help of a witch, who is more versed than me in such mutations. Is there any around? Yes, sir. There is one who lives in the other side of the town, near the cemetery. But I must warn you, Magister, of the rumors relating to her. Do you wish to know them? Yes, go on. As we know, the Sothic cycle that ended last century in 1462 was marked by the death of a worldly ruler who made big damage during his life among Satan's followers. He killed a lot of them in a most atrocious way by impaling them. Therefore, when he in turn was killed, Souther ordered one of his demons to take over the impaler's corpse and use it for satanic purposes here in our area. Reportedly, this demon is still too young and weak to do any harm. Sometimes he comes to this witch's cabin in search for food. The witch, whose name is Paholka. Hold on, Paracelsus said. Paholka is a German name, isn't it? That's right, Magister. She is German, and you can speak with her in your language. She allegedly feeds the specter with blood because he cannot find food by himself, being too weak. In exchange, it is said, he serves Paholka as a husband of sorts. His name is Dracula. What seems to me rather strange is that Paholka buys a lot of yellow spiders from everybody who is disposed to catch and sell them to her. Paholka's specter needs perhaps to be fed in a specific way, and the spider's venom is a good catalyst under certain conditions. It's amazing that this little witch may know its properties. Can you introduce me to her? Yes, sir, I gladly could, but it's not that simple. Paholka is an astute witch, and whoever wants to speak to her must leave with her more than a mite. Then, if you want me to bring you there, I must hire a phaeton and close my business for that day. Without a word, Paracelsus produced a gold coin and put it on the table, next to the cup of palinka, which was now empty. The pharmacist picked it up with downright delight and slipped it quickly in his backside pocket. If you wish to speak to Dracula, Magister, to be aware that Paholka charges a special fee for this privilege. Are you willing to pay such a fee? How much? Well, Magister, a foreigner always pays more. If you authorize me to handle the matter in your name, I can settle it for less. Paracelsus produced another gold coin and put it on the table in the same place, near the empty cup of palinka. Again, the pharmacist slipped it quickly and with open delight in his backside pocket. You know, Magister, we have full moon next week. It is the time when Dracula pays a visit to Paholka, and you can meet him then. I'd be honored to give you board and accommodation until then. It costs you a trifle, only a gold coin. Paracelsus looked at him thoughtfully, then at his wife. She was smiling slightly with her beautiful eyes rather than with lips. The magister produced 2 gold coins, and the pharmacist, without showing any surprise, slipped them quickly and delightfully in the same pocket. He then motioned to his wife, "Honey, won't you bring some more palinka? The cups are empty." The young woman nodded approval and hurried to the cave. She came back with a pitcher full of palinka, and soon the cups were filled to the rim. They clinked cups and drank bottoms up. When they did it again and again, the gray-haired pharmacist was the first to fall asleep, his head on the table. Meanwhile, Paracelsus and the young female had already found a way between one another, and eventually she saw the traveler to his room. When they entered the room, she was already nude. Well, there you go. A week later, the pharmacist rented a phaeton and took Paracelsus to Paholka. She was not too old, but her face was ravaged by a horrible disease. Looking at her, the alchemist got the shivers. Her eyes were reddish, her upper lip was receding, and because of the crack she had on her face, she looked like an old hoax. I'm guessing an old hag, much older than she really was. The magister recognized immediately the disease. It was erythropoietic porphyria. The pharmacist introduced his guest to her and explained the purpose of the visit. Then he bade goodbye and left with the understanding to come next morning to take his patron back home. Paracelsus looked around. He was in a semi-dark hall, slightly lighted by the red flames of a fire that burnt under a large cauldron. In the middle of the room, the torches were lighted in the two opposite corners and threw their moving lights on the wall between them. A skeleton was suspended from the ceiling. A wall was completely covered with shelves, and there were jars with all kinds of ingredients and mixtures necessary for charms and concoctions. He read some labels: arsenic, aconite, henbane, I think it's supposed to be, maybe not, hellebore, cantharides, dried toads, graveyard dust, hare's feet, bat's wing, newt's eyes, jimson weed, mandrake, deadly nightshade. There were boxes with drugs used in the manufacture of filters and magic ointments. Several bottles with semen and blood were laying on ice cubes. Paholka wore a rich gown of dark purple velvet with hood, figure 23. As she was standing in one of the lighted corners, her deteriorated face seemed to grimace grotesquely with the red, bizarre shadows created by the flames. She invited the visitor to take a seat. And we will stop there because we're late into this video, and I'm going to look at figure 23 first. There she is. Oh, that's 24. Just don't look. Don't look. There she is. My God. Paholka, the witch, in her doorway, trying to catch a frog with the broom. She is helped by a black cat and a raven. Frogs are always useful to witches and sorcerers. They bring out salamanders when they are dropped alive in the boiling water of a cauldron. Look at that cat's face. Focus. It just won't focus. Focus, I said, damn it. I command you to focus, witch. Look at this damn cat. That's the damnedest cat. What is that, little devil? No, it's a frog, I think. Or a mouse. Tap dancing. Anyway, that's all for now. Goodbye, bros. Goodbye.